The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with the voices of 100 different alien species. Admiral Zethkara stood tall at his command podium, his scaled green skin gleaming under the bright lights. As the leader of the Hegemony Fleet Command, he was used to being the most important person in any room. Today felt no different. The human delegation sat in the far corner, looking small and out of place among the towering aliens around them. Dr. Sarah Chen clutched a datapad in her hands, her knuckles white with tension. She had been waiting 3 hours for her chance to speak. 3 hours of listening to trade disputes and mining rights discussions. Next item, announced the council secretary, a tall blue creature with 4 arms. Request for emergency session by the Human Colonial Authority. Admiral Zethkara rolled his yellow eyes. Humans always seemed to find emergencies where none existed. They had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, yet they acted like they knew better than species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Dr. Chen stood up slowly. Her voice shook as she began to speak. Honored council members, I come before you today with a warning that could save millions of lives. A few aliens in the chamber laughed. The Veltar ambassador Krixtal clicked his mandibles in amusement. His insect-like face showed clear disdain for the human scientist. Please continue, said the secretary, though his tone suggested he would rather be anywhere else. Dr. Chen activated her holographic display. Images of ancient ruins appeared in the air above the chamber floor. The structures were massive, made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. They looked beautiful and terrible at the same time. 6 months ago, our archaeological team discovered these ruins in the Void sector, specifically around the dead system of Kepler 442, Dr. Chen explained. Our analysis shows they were built by the architects, a species that vanished millions of years ago. Yes, we all know about the architects, Admiral Zethkara interrupted. They built many things and then disappeared. What does this have to do with anything important? Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. Sir, with respect, these aren't just any ruins. Our translation teams have been working day and night to decode the messages left behind. What we found should terrify every living being in this galaxy. She changed the display to show rows of alien text with human translations beside them. The architects didn't just vanish, Admiral. They were consumed, eaten by something they accidentally awakened in that dead system. The chamber fell quiet. Even the background chatter stopped. The warnings are clear, Dr. Chen continued, her voice growing stronger. They speak of entities that exist between dimensions, things that feed on consciousness itself. The architects called them the Devourers of Light. Ambassador Krixtal stood up, his 6 legs clicking against the floor. This is ridiculous. The humans expect us to believe in ghost stories. These aren't ghost stories, Dr. Chen shot back. The architects built those crystal structures as a prison. They sacrificed their entire species to trap these entities in a pocket dimension. But the prison is weakening. She highlighted specific text on her display. The translation is very clear. The sleeper stirs when many gather where stars have died. The Void sector is exactly where stars have died, Admiral. If we send a large fleet there— Enough! Admiral Zethkara slammed his fist on his podium. I will not listen to more human paranoia. Your species sees danger in every shadow. Secretary General Maria Santos, the leader of the human delegation, stood up beside Dr. Chen. Admiral, please. We're not asking for anything unreasonable. Just declare the Void sector off-limits until we can study these warnings more carefully. Off-limits? The Veltar ambassador laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Void sector contains some of the richest mineral deposits in known space. The humans want us to abandon it so they can claim it for themselves. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Admiral Zethkara nodded. Ambassador Krixtal speaks the truth. The humans joined our council only recently, yet they try to dictate policy to species who built star-spanning empires before their planet even had fire. Dr. Chen felt her heart sink. She had expected doubt, but not this level of dismissal. Please just look at the evidence. The mathematical models show. Models built by human computers using human assumptions, Admiral Zethkara cut her off. Your species thinks in small, frightened ways. You see monsters because you are weak. The insult hit like a physical blow. Secretary General Santos stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. Admiral, we may be new to the galactic community, but we're not fools. Dr. Chen is one of the most respected xenoarchaeologists in known space. Her work on Martian ruins led to breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel. Martian ruins, scoffed Ambassador Crickstall. Primitive scratches in rocks compared to true architect sites. Dr. Chen tried one more time. The energy readings from those crystal structures are off the charts. Whatever they're containing is still active, still alive. If that containment fails, if, Admiral Zethkara interrupted. The humans always speak of what might happen, never what is actually happening. The Ninth Fleet is fully capable of handling any threats in the Void Sector. The Ninth Fleet, Dr. Chen had heard about it. 847 ships from 12 different species. The largest military force the Council had ever assembled. They plan to use it to secure the Void Sector for mining operations. Admiral, please reconsider, she begged. The architect warnings are specific. Large gatherings of consciousness near the prison will weaken the containment. A fleet that size could be exactly what triggers. The discussion is over, Admiral Zethkara declared. He looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. All those in favor of proceeding with the Void Sector operation as planned? Hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose throughout the chamber. The vote wasn't even close. Only the human delegation and a few smaller species voted against the motion. The motion passes, announced the secretary. The Ninth Fleet will depart for the Void Sector within the month. Dr. Chen slumped in her chair as the chamber erupted in celebration. Species representatives talked excitedly about the profits they would make from Void Sector mining operations. No one seemed to remember her warnings about ancient prisons and cosmic horrors. Secretary General Santos placed a comforting hand on Dr. Chen's shoulder. "We tried," she whispered. "It won't be enough," Dr. Chen replied, staring at the holographic ruins still floating above the chamber floor. "The architects were far more advanced than any of us. If they had to sacrifice their entire species to stop these things..." She didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. Admiral Zethkara was already making plans for his victory celebration. The Void Sector would make the hegemony the richest power in the galaxy. His name would be remembered forever as the admiral who secured humanity's greatest prize. He had no idea that in 6 months, he would have no name to be remembered at all. As the council session ended and delegates filed out of the chamber, Dr. Chen remained in her seat. She stared at the alien text floating in the air, reading the same warning over and over again. The sleeper stirs when many gather where stars have died. 847 ships, millions of crew members, all heading straight towards something that had terrified the most advanced species in galactic history. The humans had done everything they could to prevent disaster. Now all they could do was wait and pray they were wrong. But Dr. Chen knew they weren't wrong. The mathematics were too clear, the warnings too specific. The Ninth Fleet was sailing toward its doom, and taking the rest of the galaxy with it. Fleet Admiral Vexnor stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching the Void Sector grow larger on the main screen. 6 months had passed since the Council voted to send his fleet to secure the region. 6 months of preparation, planning, and excitement about the riches waiting for them. The Ninth Fleet was a sight to behold. 847 ships stretched out behind the flagship like a metal constellation. Dreadnoughts from the hegemony, sleek destroyers from the Veltar Empire, massive mining vessels from the Zephyrian Collective. Every major species in the Council had contributed ships and crew. "Admiral, we're entering the outer edge of the target system," reported Commander Thexali, the fleet's navigation officer. Her blue skin showed the excitement that all the crew felt. This was the biggest operation any of them had ever been part of. "Excellent," Admiral Vexner replied. He was a career military officer, decorated in 3 different wars. His reputation for getting results had earned him command of this historic mission. "Begin long-range scans. I want to know everything about this system before we commit to full deployment." The bridge crew worked efficiently at their stations. Admiral Vexnor had handpicked most of them from the best officers in the hegemony fleet. They would not disappoint him. "Sir, we're detecting the ruins the humans mentioned," called out Lieutenant Grextar from the sensor station. "They're bigger than the reports indicated." Admiral Vexnor frowned. "Show me." The main screen changed to display the scan results. Even Admiral Vexnor, who had seen the wonders of a dozen star systems, felt his breath catch. The ruins were enormous. Crystalline structures the size of moons orbited dead planets like glittering jewelry. They pulsed with a soft blue-green light that seemed to come from within the crystal itself. "Magnificent," whispered Commander Thexali. The architects really knew how to build things. Indeed they did, Admiral Vexnor agreed. And now their legacy will serve the Council's purposes. Begin deploying mining teams to the smaller structures. We'll establish our main base near the largest ruin. The fleet moved deeper into the system with military precision. Within hours, mining operations were underway on 17 different crystal structures. The teams reported that the crystalline material was unlike anything they had ever seen. It seemed to store energy in ways that defied known physics. Admiral, Mining Team 7 is reporting something unusual, Commander Thexali said 3 days into the operation. Define unusual, Admiral Vexnor replied, without looking up from his tactical display. He was busy planning the next phase of the mining operation. They say their navigation systems are acting up near the main ruin structure, compasses spinning wildly, GPS coordinates changing every few minutes. The team leader wants to pull back until they figure out what's causing it. Admiral Vexnor sighed. Mining crews always found excuses to work slower when they encountered something they didn't understand. Tell them to adapt and overcome. We're not here to be scared of technical difficulties. But the reports kept coming. Navigation problems spread to other mining sites. Ship sensors gave conflicting readings when pointed at the crystal structures. Some crew members reported strange dreams after working near the ruins. The dreams are the worst part, explained Captain Yulvex during the weekly commanders' meeting. He led one of the mining vessels working closest to the largest ruin. My crew says they dream of vast spaces between the stars, empty places full of hungry things calling out to them. Admiral Vexnor rolled his eyes. Captain, your crew needs better sleep schedules and less imagination. Dreams are not mission-critical concerns. With respect, Admiral, these aren't normal dreams. The crew members describe identical visions. They all hear the same voices speaking in languages that don't exist. Languages change over time, Admiral Vexnor replied dismissively. Perhaps they're hearing echoes of ancient architect communication systems. It's probably just background radiation. Captain Yulvex looked like he wanted to argue, but he held his tongue. Admiral Vexnor was known for his short temper when subordinates questioned his judgment. The breakthrough came on the 8th day of mining operations. Team 12, working on the largest crystal structure, discovered what appeared to be an access point. The crystalline shell had a section that seemed thinner than the rest, almost like a doorway. Admiral, we think we can cut through here, reported the team leader, a skilled engineer named Dorani. The crystal in this section is only about 50 meters thick instead of the usual 500. Excellent work, Team 12, Admiral Vexnor replied. Proceed with cutting operations. Let's see what the architects were hiding inside their pretty boxes. The cutting took 6 hours. Advanced plasma torches worked steadily through the crystal, creating a perfect circular opening. As soon as the final layer was breached, every sensor in the fleet went crazy. Admiral, shouted Lieutenant Grextar. I'm reading massive energy spikes from the structure. Power levels are off the charts. All ships, this is Admiral Vexnor, he announced over the fleet communication system. We appear to have triggered some kind of automated system. Maintain positions and continue monitoring. But it wasn't an automated system. Through the hole Team 12 had cut, something began to emerge. At first it looked like darkness, simple, empty space, but as the crew watched through their cameras they realized the darkness was moving, flowing like liquid but with purpose. Team 12, report your status, Admiral Vexnor ordered. Static answered him, then screaming. Team 12, respond immediately. More screaming came through the communication system, but it didn't sound quite human anymore. The voices were changing, becoming something else. Something wrong. Admiral, I'm losing contact with all teams near the main structure, Commander Thexali reported, her voice tight with fear. Whatever came out of that hole is spreading. Admiral Vexnor watched the tactical display as red warning lights appeared across the fleet formation. Ships near the crystal structure were going dark one by one, not destroyed, simply gone as if they had never existed at all. All ships, emergency withdrawal to safe distance, Admiral Vexnor ordered. Combat alert status. Prepare all weapons. But weapons meant nothing against what they faced. The darkness continued to spread, swallowing ships and crew without leaving any debris behind. It moved between vessels like smoke, but wherever it touched, reality itself seemed to break down. Admiral, the entity is approaching our position, Commander Thexali said. Her blue skin had turned almost white with terror. Admiral Vexnor stared at the main screen as the darkness reached toward his flagship. For the first time in his long military career, he felt true fear. This wasn't an enemy that could be fought or reasoned with. This was something that shouldn't exist. Open a channel to Nexus Prime, he ordered. Emergency priority. Channel open, sir. Admiral Vexnor grabbed his communication headset and began to speak rapidly. Council Command, this is Admiral Vexnor of the Ninth Fleet. We have encountered something in the Void Sector. The human warnings were correct. The crystal structures aren't ruins, they're a prison. We've let it out. The darkness reached the bridge. Admiral Vexnor's words turned into screams, then into something that wasn't sound at all. The communication channel filled with a noise that drove the monitoring station operators on Nexus Prime to madness. Then there was silence. The Ninth Fleet, all 847 ships, had simply vanished. The only trace they left behind was that final, terrible transmission and the slowly spinning crystal ruins that no longer glowed with peaceful blue-green light. Now they pulsed red, like a heartbeat, like something waking up. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in recorded history. Admiral Zethkara stood at his podium, but his usual confidence was gone. His scaled hands shook as he read the reports coming in from deep space monitoring stations. The last confirmed contact with the Ninth Fleet was 8 days ago, he announced to the packed chamber. All attempts to re-establish communication have failed. Long-range sensors show no debris, no energy signatures, nothing. The chamber erupted in confused voices. Representatives from dozens of species demanded answers that no one could provide. How does an entire fleet simply disappear? Ambassador Crixtel's mandibles clicked nervously. Perhaps they encountered some kind of natural disaster. Stellar collapse, gravitational anomaly, something of that nature. We considered that possibility, Admiral Zethkara replied. But our best scientists say there's nothing in the void sector that could destroy 800 ships without leaving any trace. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human delegation section, her face pale but determined. Secretary General Maria Santos leaned over and whispered, "Should we say something?" "They won't listen," Dr. Chen whispered back. "They never do," but she was wrong. This time, things were different. "The floor recognizes Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth," announced the council secretary. His tone was respectful now, not dismissive like before. Dr. Chen stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. All eyes were on her, and for once no one was laughing or making jokes about human paranoia. "Honored council members," she began. 6 months ago I stood in this same spot and warned you about the dangers in the void sector. You chose not to listen. Now we have the consequences of that decision. Admiral Zethkara's jaw tightened. "Dr. Chen, if you have information that could help us understand what happened to our people—" "I told you what would happen," she interrupted. "The architect ruins aren't tourist attractions. They're a prison that your mining operations just broke open." She activated her holographic display again. This time, the chamber remained silent as she spoke. "My team has been working around the clock to translate more architect texts," Dr. Chen continued. "What we've found should terrify every living being in this galaxy. The entities the architects imprisoned don't just destroy matter and energy, they consume consciousness itself." New images appeared in the air above the chamber, more alien text with translations beside it. The architects called them the Devourers of Light, Dr. Chen explained. They exist in the spaces between dimensions, feeding on the thoughts and memories of living beings. They don't kill you, they erase you. Make it so you never existed at all. Ambassador Crixtel leaned forward. "You're saying these creatures ate an entire fleet?" "I'm saying they consumed everything that made the Ninth Fleet real," Dr. Chen replied. "The ships, the crew, even the memory of their existence. That's why there's no debris. There's nothing left to remember." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. "How do we fight something like that?" asked a delegate from the Zephyrian Collective. "The architects found only one way," Dr. Chen said grimly. "They sacrificed their entire species to build a prison strong enough to hold these entities. Billions of advanced beings gave their lives to trap something that threatens all existence." Admiral Zethkara struggled to process this information, but the prison failed. The fleet broke it open. Not failed, Dr. Chen corrected. Weakened. The architect texts are clear about this. Large gatherings of consciousness near the prison would stress the containment. The Ninth Fleet was exactly the kind of gathering the warnings mentioned. It changed the display to show gravitational readings. From deep space sensors, we're Already seeing the effects, she continued. Monitoring stations are detecting massive gravitational distortions in the void sector. Reality itself is bending around something that shouldn't exist in our dimension. What do we do? Secretary General Santos asked from the human section. Dr. Chen hesitated. My team is still analyzing the architect data, but early translations suggest there might be a way to repair the prison. It would require specific technology and, she paused, and a very particular type of consciousness to operate it. What kind of consciousness? Admiral Zethkara demanded. We don't know yet. The translations are incomplete, but we're working on it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Chen's research team was making breakthrough discoveries in the ruins buried beneath Antarctica. The ice-covered structures had been dismissed as natural formations for centuries, but new scanning technology revealed their true nature. Dr. James Wright, Dr. Chen's colleague, stood in the main chamber of the Antarctic site, staring at walls covered in architect symbols. This isn't just another outpost, he reported over the communication link to Dr. Chen on Nexus Prime. This is some kind of instruction manual. What kind of instructions? Dr. Chen asked. How to rebuild the prison. How to make it stronger. Sarah, the architects knew their original containment wouldn't last forever. They left us a backup plan. The discovery changed everything. The Antarctic ruins contained detailed blueprints for quantum resonance technology that could reinforce dimensional barriers. But as Dr. Wright studied the plans, he found troubling requirements. The technology requires a specific type of consciousness to operate, he explained during an emergency team meeting. The architects describe it as fluid thinking, minds that can adapt to contradictions and impossible situations. What does that mean? Asked Dr. Lisa Park, the team's linguistic specialist. I think it means minds that can believe two contradictory things at the same time, Dr. Wright replied. Consciousness that can accept the impossible as possible. The architect text suggests that most advanced species lose this ability as they become more logical and structured in their thinking. Dr. Park suddenly understood. They're talking about imagination, creative thinking, the ability to make intuitive leaps, which explains why they chose Earth as the backup site, Dr. Wright concluded. Human consciousness is uniquely suited for this kind of work. We're the only species stubborn enough to try something everyone says is impossible. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council was preparing for another disaster. Admiral Zethkara announced plans for a second expeditionary force, over 2,000 ships this time. We'll approach with overwhelming firepower, he declared. Whatever destroyed the Ninth Fleet won't be expecting a force of this magnitude. Dr. Chen felt sick as she listened to the Admiral's plans. Sir, you're not listening. More ships will only make the problem worse. The entities grow stronger by consuming consciousness. A larger fleet just gives them more food. Then what do you suggest? Admiral Zethkara snapped. That we abandon the sector entirely? Yes, Dr. Chen replied simply. Until we can implement the architect's solution, the chamber erupted in angry voices. The idea of retreating from the void sector was unthinkable to most council members. Too much pride was at stake, too much potential profit. The human delegates suggest we run away like cowards, Ambassador Crixtel declared. I say we face this threat with the combined might of our civilizations. The vote was even more one-sided than before. Only the humans and 3 small species voted against sending the second expeditionary force. As the council session ended, Dr. Chen made a private communication to Earth. Maria, we need to begin emergency preparations. Operation Last Light has to be ready before the Second Fleet reaches the void sector. How long do we have? Secretary General Santos asked. 6 weeks, maybe 7 if we're lucky. That's not enough time to build the quantum resonance equipment. It has to be, Dr. Chen replied grimly, because if the Second Fleet breaks the prison completely, there won't be anything left to save. The race against extinction had begun. Humanity stood alone against cosmic horror while the rest of the galaxy prepared to make the same mistake twice. But this time, the entities would be ready for them. Secretary General Maria Santos stood before the emergency session of the United Earth government, her face grave with the weight of the decision she was about to announce. Representatives from every human colony and nation filled the assembly hall, their voices creating a nervous buzz of conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General Santos began, I have called this session to inform you of humanity's withdrawal from the Council's Second Expeditionary Force. As of today, no human ships or personnel will participate in any military operations in the Void Sector. The chamber erupted. Governor Chen of New Shanghai Colony jumped to his feet. Secretary General, you're condemning us to economic ruin. The Council will impose sanctions, cut off our trade routes. My colony depends on hegemony commerce. The alternative is the extinction of all sentient life in the galaxy. Santos replied firmly. Dr. Chen's research is clear. The Second Fleet will not defeat these entities. It will only feed them. Representative Williams from Europa Station shook her head. With respect, ma'am, we're talking about theoretical translations from ancient ruins versus the combined military might of 12 species. Maybe the Council is right. Maybe overwhelming force is the answer. The Ninth Fleet was overwhelming force, Santos countered. 847 ships vanished without a trace. The Second Fleet has over 2,000 vessels. If it fails, these entities will be strong enough to break free from the Void Sector entirely. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was having her own crisis of confidence. The Antarctic Research Facility buzzed with activity as teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to decode the architect instructions. But the more they learned, the more impossible the task seemed. The quantum resonance generators require materials that don't exist in nature, reported Dr. James Wright during the daily briefing. We need crystalline matrices that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The mathematical requirements alone are staggering. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her translation work. I think I found something that might help. The architects mentioned singing crystals in several passages. They described them as fragments of their prison technology that were scattered across the galaxy when the containment was first built. Singing crystals? Dr. Chen asked. That's my translation of the architect term, but I think they're referring to the crystalline fragments we've found in various archaeological sites over the years. We always assumed they were decorative artifacts, but they might actually be functional technology. Dr. Wright pulled up a holographic display showing archaeological sites across human space. If Dr. Park is right, we might have the materials we need already. The singing crystals have been sitting in museums and private collections for decades. How many sites contain these crystals? Dr. Chen asked. 17 confirmed locations, maybe more. But Sarah, even if we collect all of them, we still need to figure out how to make them work together. The architect instructions are incredibly complex. Dr. Chen stared at the data, her mind racing. The instructions say the technology requires specific consciousness to operate. What if that's not just about having the right kind of thinking? What if it's about having the right emotional state? What do you mean? The architects describe the operators as needing impossible optimism. Not just creative thinking, but the absolute belief that the impossible can become possible. The kind of stubborn hope that refuses to accept defeat even when all logic says it's hopeless. Dr. Park nodded slowly. That does sound very human. Meanwhile, in the deepest levels of the Antarctic facility, another team made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden beneath layers of ice and rock, they found what appeared to be an intact architect control chamber. Dr. Chen, you need to see this, called Dr. Michael Torres over the communication system. We found something incredible down here. The chamber was a perfect sphere carved from solid crystal, its walls covered in flowing architect symbols that seemed to move and change as they watched. In the center stood a platform surrounded by 12 smaller pedestals. It's some kind of control interface, Dr. Torres explained as Dr. Chen arrived. But it's not responding to any of our attempts to activate it. Dr. Chen approached one of the pedestals carefully. As her hand neared the crystal surface, the symbols began to glow softly. It's reading my biosignature, she whispered. It's trying to connect with human consciousness. She placed her palm flat against the crystal. Immediately, images flooded her mind. Not pictures, but pure knowledge transferred directly to her brain. She saw the prison as it truly was, not just a physical structure, but a web of reality itself bent into an impossible shape to contain entities that existed outside normal space-time. The knowledge came with a price. Dr. Chen collapsed, her nose bleeding, her consciousness reeling from contact with technology millions of years beyond human understanding. But she had learned what she needed to know. The prison isn't just weakening, she gasped as Dr. Torres helped her sit up. It's being deliberately broken from the inside. The entities aren't passive prisoners. They're actively working to escape, and they're using the consciousness they consumed from the Ninth Fleet to do it. The implications were staggering. Every ship, every crew member that the entities consumed made them stronger and smarter. They were learning about galactic civilization from the minds they devoured. "How long do we have?" Dr. Torres asked. "Weeks, maybe less. And when the second fleet arrives, Dr. Chen didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Zeth Kara was growing suspicious of human activities. Intelligence reports suggested that Earth was mobilizing resources for some kind of secret operation in the Void sector. "They're up to something," he told Ambassador Krikstal during a private meeting. "Human ships have been seen gathering at the edge of Council space, loaded with mining equipment and scientific instruments. Perhaps they plan to claim the Void sector for themselves while we're distracted with military preparations," the ambassador suggested. His mandibles clicked with annoyance. That would be just like them. Coward when asked to help, then sneak in to steal the profits. What Admiral Zeth Kara didn't understand was that humanity was preparing for the most desperate mission in their species' history. Operation Last Light was taking shape in the converted cargo holds of colony ships and mining vessels. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the converted colony ship Hope's End, watching as the last of the quantum resonance equipment was loaded into the cargo bays. He was a veteran of the Martian Independence War, a man who had seen impossible battles and somehow survived them all. "Captain, the Antarctic team is reporting successful integration of the singing crystals," his science officer reported. "All 12 fragments are resonating in harmony." "And our volunteer list?" Captain Morrison asked. 10,000 confirmed, sir. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, even civilians. They all understand the risks. The risks were total. The architect technology required human consciousness to be merged directly with the quantum field that maintained the prison. The volunteers would become part of the containment system itself, their minds forever linked to the barrier holding back cosmic horror. "Any word from Earth Command about the Council's reaction?" Morrison asked. "Secretary General Santos reports increasing pressure from member colonies. Several are threatening to withdraw from the United Earth government if we don't reverse our position on the Second Fleet." Morrison nodded grimly. Fear was making people desperate, and desperate people made bad decisions. But humanity had made its choice. They would stand alone if necessary. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We depart for the Void sector in 6 hours. Once we're underway, there's no turning back." As the small human fleet prepared to leave Earth space, Dr. Chen made one final attempt to warn the Council. Her transmission was broadcast on all emergency channels, desperate and urgent. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen to all Council vessels. Do not proceed to the Void sector. The entities are using the consciousness of the Ninth Fleet to break free from their prison. A larger fleet will only accelerate their escape. Humanity is attempting to reinforce the containment, but we need time. Please delay your operation until—" The transmission was cut off by Council jamming systems. Admiral Zeth Kara had heard enough human propaganda. "All ships, maintain course and speed," he ordered the Second Expeditionary Force. "We will not be deterred by human lies and cowardice." 2 fleets raced toward the Void sector, one massive and proud, the other small and determined. But only one understood what they were truly facing. The entities in their weakening prison felt them coming. They had learned much from the minds they had consumed, and they were ready to consume more. Soon they would have enough consciousness to break free entirely. Then the real feeding could begin. Admiral Zeth Kara stood on the command deck of the super dreadnought Galactic Victory, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The Second Expeditionary Force stretched out around his flagship, like a metal galaxy. Over 2,000 ships representing the greatest military force ever assembled. "Magnificent," he murmured to Commander Thexali. "Whatever destroyed the Ninth Fleet will not be expecting this level of firepower." Behind them, the bridge crew worked with confident efficiency. They had trained for months for this mission, studying every piece of data from the First Fleet's disappearance. This time would be different. This time they were ready. "Admiral, we're entering the outer edge of the Void sector," reported the navigation officer. "Long-range sensors are detecting the crystal structures." "Excellent. Deploy the reality anchor pods and activate dimensional scramblers. If we're dealing with some kind of space-time anomaly, our new technology will protect us." The fleet moved into formation with practiced precision. Unlike the first expedition, this force was equipped with experimental technology designed to stabilize local space-time and prevent dimensional intrusions. The Council's best scientists had worked day and night to create these defenses. For 37 minutes, their confidence seemed justified. "Sensors are clear, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Grextar. "No hostile contacts, no energy anomalies. The crystal structures appear to be dormant. Perhaps the threat burned itself out, destroying the Ninth Fleet," suggested Commander Thexali hopefully. Admiral Zethkara nodded. "Begin deployment of mining teams, but maintain full battle alert. We won't be caught off guard like Admiral Vexner." The first sign of trouble came from Mining Team Alpha, working on one of the smaller crystal structures. Their leader, Engineer Dalmax, had just started cutting into the crystal shell when his voice came over the communication system, filled with confusion. "Command, we're getting some unusual readings here. The crystal isn't responding to our tools the way it should. It's almost like it's alive." "Define alive, Team Alpha," Admiral Zethkara replied. "It's warm, sir, and it's pulsing, like a heartbeat." Before Admiral Zethkara could respond, the pulse quickened. All across the fleet, sensors began detecting energy spikes from the crystal structures. But these weren't the chaotic readings the Ninth Fleet had reported. These were organized, purposeful, intelligent. "Admiral," Lieutenant Grextar called out, his voice tight with fear. "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the central structure. Power levels are beyond anything in our database. All mining teams withdraw to safe distance immediately," Admiral Zethkara ordered. "Combat alert. All weapons to full charge." But weapons meant nothing against what emerged from the crystal prison. It started as darkness, just like before. But this darkness was different. It moved with purpose, with intelligence gained from consuming the minds of the Ninth Fleet's crew. The entities had learned about galactic technology, military tactics, and, most importantly, they had learned about fear. The darkness didn't simply spread randomly this time. It targeted specific ships flowing through space like liquid shadow to surround the most important vessels first. Command ships, science vessels, anything containing the most complex consciousness. "Admiral, we're losing contact with the carrier Eternal Might," Commander Thexali reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she worked her console. "Impossible. The Eternal Might has full reality anchor protection." On the tactical display, they watched the massive carrier simply fade from existence. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone as if it had never been built. "Reality anchors are ineffective, sir," reported the science officer. "These entities aren't from another dimension. They exist in the spaces between reality itself. Our technology can't protect us." Admiral Zethkara felt the first cold touch of true fear. This wasn't a battle he could win with superior firepower. This wasn't even a battle at all. It was feeding time, and his fleet was the meal. Emergency withdrawal. All ships maximum speed away from the structures. But it was too late. The entities, strengthened by consuming an entire fleet, were no longer confined to the immediate area around the crystal structures. They had grown powerful enough to extend their reach across the entire star system. Ships began disappearing in clusters. Entire battle groups vanished from sensors and memory simultaneously. The dimensional scramblers, designed to prevent enemy teleportation, had no effect on entities that existed outside normal spacetime entirely. Admiral Zethkara grabbed his communications headset with shaking hands. "Council Command, this is Admiral Zethkara. We are under attack by something that shouldn't exist. The human warnings were correct. We are being consumed by..." The darkness reached his ship. Admiral Zethkara's words turned into screams that drove the monitoring station operators on Nexus Prime to madness, just as they had 6 months earlier. But this time the screaming lasted longer, as if the entities were savoring their feast. Then, silence. 2,043 ships had simply ceased to exist, but the entities were no longer satisfied with passive imprisonment. Fed by the consciousness of nearly 3 million beings, they had grown strong enough to break free from the void sector entirely. Reality began to tear as they pushed against the boundaries of their ancient prison. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison felt the quantum resonance equipment on his ship begin to scream with alarm signals. The small human fleet had just arrived at the coordinates Dr. Chen had calculated, the exact point where the original architect prison was weakest. "Captain, we're reading massive reality distortions from the central structure," reported his science officer. "The containment is failing. Those things are about to break free entirely." Morrison looked out at his small fleet. 12 converted colony ships and mining vessels, crewed by 10,000 volunteers who understood they were about to sacrifice everything to save a galaxy that had dismissed their warnings. "Begin deployment of the quantum resonance array," he ordered. "Signal all volunteers to their positions." The human solution was elegant in its simplicity and terrible in its cost. The singing crystals, fragments of the original architect prison, would be used to create a new containment field. But unlike the original prison, this one would be powered by living consciousness. Human minds merged permanently with the quantum matrix that held reality together. Dr. Chen, aboard the science vessel Last Hope, activated the control systems she had learned to operate in the Antarctic facility. The process required her to link her consciousness directly with architect technology, millions of years beyond human understanding. "Sarah, are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Wright over the communication link. "Once you start the process, there's no way to reverse it." "I'm sure," Dr. Chen replied, placing her hands on the crystal interface. "The architects left us these instructions for a reason. They knew this day would come." As the quantum resonance array came online, reality itself began to bend around the human fleet. The singing crystals resonated in harmony, creating a new prison layer around the ancient containment, but the process required constant maintenance by living minds. "All volunteers report to resonance chambers," Captain Morrison announced over the fleet-wide communication system. "Remember, you're not just saving humanity. You're saving every thinking being in the galaxy." The volunteers entered the resonance chambers without hesitation. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, even civilians who had insisted on coming along. They understood the price and they paid it willingly. One by one, their consciousness merged with the quantum field. Their bodies remained alive, but their minds became part of something larger, a living barrier between the entities and the rest of reality. Captain Morrison was among the last to enter his chamber. As the quantum field began to merge with his consciousness, he felt his individual identity start to fade. But he also felt something else, the combined will of 10,000 human minds united in their determination to hold back the dark. The new prison held. The entities, denied their feast and faced with a barrier powered by the stubborn optimism that only humans possessed, found themselves trapped more securely than ever before. The singing crystals hummed with the voices of the volunteers, their consciousness forever standing guard against cosmic horror. On Nexus Prime, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in history. The loss of 2 entire fleets, over 3,000 ships and nearly 4 million beings, had shattered their confidence in their own superiority. The humans were right. Admiral Zethkara's replacement admitted reluctantly, "Their warnings could have saved lives if we had listened." Secretary General Santos, representing humanity's new position in galactic politics, stood to address the council. "The prison holds for now, but it requires maintenance. Every 50 years, human volunteers must travel to the void sector to reinforce the quantum matrix with their consciousness. It's a burden we accept willingly." "Why?" asked the Veltar ambassador. "Why sacrifice your people for a galaxy that dismissed your warnings?" Santos smiled sadly. "Because someone has to. Because the alternative is the end of everything, and because that's what humans do. We stand guard against the dark even when no one asks us to."